Hello everybody, this is Brittney and Byron, and you're listening to Dirty Laundry with B&B, a podcast about real, relatable relationships.
Transparency at its finest, we air it out and clear it up, offering couples and those seeking healthy relationships a safe, inclusive space to open the vents and find resolve.
Hello, Dirty Laundry listeners.
What's up, people?
I hope you guys are all having a great week.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Great. I'm back.
You are back. He's home, finally.
Yeah.
The longest 7 weeks ever.
Man, it feels really good to be home, but it feels awkward.
Yeah.
It feels weird. It doesn't feel real. It feels like I've been thrusted into another new world. It doesn't matter how long you've been with someone or in a particular environment. When you're removed from that space for a while and you come back to it, it feels foreign and it's odd.
Yeah.
I don't like it, and it's been really, really weird. I can't explain it. Only those who have experienced this understand this feeling. But yeah, like obviously there's no place like home, and I'm glad to be here. My mind is still just in that training mindset. You know what I mean?
That reacclimation period is always a real thing for military families.
Yeah.
Even for, me, the same. It's like we've been on our flow and been trying to make things happen. And then you come back in, it's like we got to readjust everything again.
Exactly.
So a part of the life we live, at least.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe it's not life for everybody.
And I'm sure like while I've been gone, you've kind of established your own order and your own routine. And then I come in and it's kind of blown up. Even though our children are with their grandparents right now, like Brittney and I, we have a week to spend with each other before the kids get here, which is great. But we're still trying to relearn each other, which is kind of right.
Yeah.
But it's fun at the same time. So we were just trying to, practice some patience and understanding and some empathic listening, right? But I think that's why we're here this morning, right?
That's right. To talk about expressing ourselves. B and I were just talking yesterday and we were like, oh my gosh, we got to talk about this on the podcast because we were talking about how a lot of times the way we were raised, it affects how we're able to communicate with each other, and it affects or limits our thinking and capacity past what we're able to express because we did not have the practice in our youth and our young adolescent years,
Yeah, and even if you are someone who likes to talk and express yourself by nature, you can be nurtured into not doing that. And I feel like, based on our conversation, that's kind of what we've been nurtured into, a life where you're not really able to express yourself. And so why does that matter? Why are we talking about this on a relationship podcast? Well, if I'm unable to properly express myself to my partner, then that can, cause a lot of conflict in our relationship. So it's an everyday battle trying to figure out how to best express myself and what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. I think obviously the first thing you have to do is understand those feelings, understand those emotions, understand why they are coming about, and not blame you for why I feel those certain ways. But it takes a lot of grace and patience and pause for me to really cope with and understand those common feelings that are okay to have. Yeah,
they are. And what I find to be difficult is if you don't do it a lot, if you don't express yourself, it's very uncomfortable to do. The only way to get through it is to do it, is to practice expressing yourself. And I'm going to give like a small example. Well, maybe it's not a small example, but this past weekend I went to my 20-year reunion and I have a friend who we were roommates in college. We were friends for years and we had a falling out. Since we were children, had a falling out, and I knew she was going to be there, and I was in this limbo of these are the things I'm going to say. And I had so much preparedness in my mind. I had thought about this situation over and over and over again. And I knew that if the time came and we had to speak, that I wanted to use my words intentionally to express exactly what needed to be said. Because when you fail to express what you say, then your meaning can be misunderstood. And so it's like, then you're in this like, well, that's not how I meant it, or it's not what I meant to say. And so then you're backtracking, and then later you're thinking about, I should have said this, versus being in that moment and trying to express yourself. And I was so proud of myself. And that's kind of what we were talking about yesterday, was that I was so intentional about my words that I used. And I was very precise and very clear, and I didn't get emotional, and a lot of times I find myself getting frustrated when I can't express what I want to say, or you're not getting what I want you to understand what I'm trying to say. And for myself, I did it so gracefully, and it came across so clear, and it was so honest and raw, and that's exactly what I wanted. And I was like, yes, I did that. And moral of the story is we're in a good place now, and I think we're going to be able to move forward with that friendship, as the future will determine. But it was a moment that made me realize that my own emotional intelligence had increased.
Right. So I want to ask you a question about that interaction. Okay. Out of everything that you just said right now, we understand that it was a successful conversation. What was the key in making that conversation as successful as it was, would you say?
My honesty.
Okay.
Although it might hurt your feelings, and I think I actually use those words, I'm going to tell you because what I wasn't going to continue to do is think about in my head what I want to say, but I don't want to hurt your feelings. And I think we fail to do that with everyone in our lives.
Yeah.
We tiptoe sometimes because we don't want to hurt our feelings, even though the intent is not there to hurt your feelings. The intent is to express how I feel, but there's this hesitation that I'm going to hurt your feelings. So I think just the honesty.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you expressed that. Did not think that was going to be your answer.
What do you think was
that
going
was
to be
kind
my
of a
answer?
leading question.
Okay.
But I like where you went with it because it is important to be authentic in the way that you're expressing yourself for not only you, but for the person that you're providing that information to. They need to know exactly how you feel. Otherwise, you're trying to control their response based on what you are saying, right? And so that's not fair in order to have a good true relationship with someone. We don't use that word enough. True relationship with someone. You need to provide them with your truth and allow their response to be their truth. And however that consequence is or the benefit of that outcome is, be fine with it. What I thought you were going to say is talk about your preparedness. You talked a lot about being intentional and thinking about and practicing what that was going to look like. And I found that enlightening because we don't do that in relationships. Like we don't prepare to have a conversation, a difficult conversation with each other. We just kind of let it roll off the tip of our tongue, which isn't always the most effective way. So what I learned from you sharing that is it's okay for me to visualize or to practice in order to think about how a conversation should go if I want to express myself to you in a certain way. So I appreciate you sharing that. That makes a lot of sense to me, though. Yeah. I was super proud of Brittney, by the way. You are not very much a confrontational person, and you don't like to hurt people's feelings. You often tell me how you feel about stuff, right?
Yeah, you always get the worst.
But when it comes to a professional relationship or a close friend or close family member, it is not like you to say things that would hurt them or say things that you think would hurt them, because it may not hurt them, but you think that would hurt them. And so I was really proud of you for the way that you kind of worked through that amongst yourself, whether that be you just in the mirror looking at yourself working through it, or before you go to sleep praying about it. But the fact that you had that conversation, and it's been years, right, since y'all had
8 or 9 years.
Yeah, so I was extremely proud of you for doing that. And it feels good, right, to be on the other side of it now.
It does. It 100% does feel good. And, you were saying that, and it's kind of twofold, right? Once you say your raw and honest feelings to someone, you have to be ready to... there's always a second side of the story. No one is perfect, and they're going to have their side. And so you got to be prepared to not have your own feelings hurt.
Yeah.
Not to take, not to get defensive or not to be offended, because whatever their truth is, there's always two sides. And sometimes maybe there isn't a reason. There's not a real reason as to how people get where they are, but this is where we are now. So how are we going to move forward? Yeah.
And the thing is, you said it was 8, 9 years ago. So that reason might be overcome by other, things.
Sure.
So why are we still worried about that? So now y'all are in a different phase of life and y'all have matured in a lot of different ways. And so let's talk about immaturity, right? And so that's one of the reasons why we have a lot of conflict when it comes to expressing yourself in your relationships, is because of your emotional insecurity and emotional immaturity. So let's talk about that a little bit. Why do you think that some people are emotionally immature?
Okay, well, just as far as just growing up, period. I think there's some brain development obviously in there.
Sure.
But there's also the lack of maturity because I don't think we're taught. We're not taught how to properly, think about when you were a kid. If you were to get upset or frustrated, what would your mom say to you?
Yeah. If I were to get upset or get frustrated.
Or were you even allowed to get upset?
No, absolutely. It wasn't a thing. It was basically a shut up and color. It's because I said so. You better not cry. I'll give you something to cry about. Go to your room. There was never a solution making process when it came to me expressing how I felt about a certain something, right? You weren't given that leash or that space to feel a certain way, especially if it was opposite of your parents. So like my parents, if you agreed with how they were feeling about something, that they were frustrated about something, I'm frustrated too. If we're excited about something, if they're excited about something, I'm excited too, then it's okay. But when anytime there's any type of confrontation or conflict, the parent always wins. That's what I learned growing up, is that the parent always wins. And I hope that that doesn't bleed into our way that we parent our children.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what I'm hearing when you say that too is the question was, why do you think that we lack emotional intelligence and the ability to express ourselves? Those are the reasons why you immediately were shown as a child. I'm not going to validate your feeling. I'm not going to show you empathy where you may need it. I'm not going to talk about it. We're not going to have open communication because we're done. All of those things lead to being a successful human and person. And I experienced a lot of the same things. You know that. And so sometimes I always say for women, we were just told to shut up and look pretty, and I was raised in very much an environment like that. So now here I am, well into my young adolescent years, frustrated and arguing and disagreeing, and there's no open, you know what your parents always used to say to us growing up is, you can always talk to me. Right. I'm always here.
Right.
But we never did. And there's a reason why, because we never practiced. We didn't know how.
Yeah. Even when it was something safe. Oh, I didn't want French fries with this. I wanted fruit. Oh, well, you're going to eat what's in that bag, right? Like when it's something that's so simple and it's meaningless, that could have been a great opportunity for you to practice that conflict or solution-making process whenever something doesn't go your way. How is my parent going to respond when I have a problem with something? If it's the response is, you're going to eat what I give you, then I've learned that I can't approach you with any of that, right? And so what happens with you if you are emotionally immature as a child because you weren't probably taught the way to cope with those types of feelings is that you become either avoidant, right, or angry when it comes to those certain type of emotions, and insecure. Like I know that for me, avoidance is like a tool that I use a lot in our relationship, which is not the best thing, because guess what? When I avoid my feelings, if I feel a certain way about it and I don't want to approach you about it because I already know what you gonna say, like then I get in my own mind about it, right? And it just becomes my truth when it's not even true.
Right.
It's my truth, but it's not the truth. So there's got to be a way to get around that, and that's just by expressing myself and being okay with whatever that consequence looks like, or whatever the outcome looks like. I know I keep saying consequence, but whatever that,
not the consequence,
it could be a positive or negative consequence, but whatever that outcome is, yeah, I should be okay with that.
Consequence.
Right. Bring that belt out. Yeah.
No, you're so right though. You should be able to, here's what I said and here's how I feel. And I think there is a time and a place, not every single thing, but you're right about avoidance. And I think being raised in certain environments make you like that. Yeah. I know for me, I will be uncomfortable in a situation for much longer than I know other people too. Like, and I've always wondered, well, like they just say it and they just don't care what the consequences. They don't care what happens. I've seen it in the workplace. It's like, what makes them feel that they can say that, but I don't feel that I can say that? Yeah. What's the difference? And as I've grown older and figured out how to communicate better and express myself better, I'm starting to see that. It's coming to fruition, that more confident piece in expressing yourself. Yeah. Because you practiced.
Right. I think that you've always been confident. I wouldn't say, this is just my opinion.
Okay.
I think you've always been confident in the way that you express yourself. I think that, you've always been confident in expressing yourself. I think you're learning different ways of how to express yourself that might be more tactful, or might be more truthful, or might be more honest, or might be more direct. And I think that you're kind of shaping the way that you express yourself, which I'm appreciative of, but I'm sure that other people around you are certainly appreciative of too. So we talked a little bit about emotional immaturity. So, and then obviously we touched on a little bit of miscommunication, but let's also talk about the differing communication styles. Like maybe we are mature in the way that we express ourselves. Maybe there is no miscommunication, but maybe we're hard of hearing because I don't necessarily agree with the way that you express yourself, right? So I would say that I am more of the beat around the bush communicator. You know what I mean? Okay. Like I'll introduce humor, or I'll try to make it soft, you know what I mean? In a way that the person that I'm speaking with can better understand or appreciate. I want people to want to do what I'm asking them to do as opposed to just do it. And so I think that's like my go-to. That's my crutch. What about you? How would you express or explain the way that you express yourself?
I probably express myself too kindly, if that makes sense. I over glamorize how I feel. Maybe I'm like, but it's always like it's not a big deal though,
Right.
and then I'm like, but it was a big deal because I brought it up. You know what I mean? But I try to soften the blow. I'm like, let me just, I know that really did bother me. And then I go home and I tell Byron all about how frustrated I was about somebody doing something, but I never said it when I had the opportunity instead of just addressing it. So I try to like soften the blow for other people.
Right. So, and I have a hard time with the opposite of that. Like, I can appreciate when someone's like not necessarily passive, but they're more like in tune with with me, right? So they can kind of relate to me, and they're like, yeah. So let me tell you, this is the way that I think it should have happened. I understand that you feel like this is this, but this is what I think. Like, I have a really hard time with direct communication.
Why though?
Right? I don't know. I think it's just because that's the way I was raised. I might get defensive. I think I get angry. Like I get because most of the time I have other people in mind when I make decisions. And so my decisions take a very, very long time to get to because I've already integrated in my solution making process what he's going to think, what she's going to think, and how she's going to feel and how he's going to feel. And so when I finally it comes out the oven and I put it on the table, I'm like, oh yeah, it's ready to go. Then someone questions it. I'm like, man, that sucked. Or that's stupid. Or, hey, this is how you should have did that. I'm like, yo, I take it personally. That's what it is. I take it personally. And I shouldn't.
Instead of taking it at face value.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's your opinion.
Right,
you think it sucks.
Right. And someone might not they just disagree with the product. They don't disagree with the machine. Like, they don't disagree with me. They don't dislike me. They're not mad at the person or human being that I am. They just don't like the decision that I made.
Right. You just disagree on that.
Right. And so I think and I'm speaking like it makes sense right now, but in the moment, like I don't like it. You know what I mean? Like I don't like it at all. I just can't take it. But that's why, like, I think that I do best with people that kind of consider are more empathic when it comes to that, right? And I think that's another reason why, right? So we talked about miscommunication and emotional immaturity, and different types of communication, but empathy. Like, there's a lot of lack of empathy in the way that you communicate with someone, the way that you express yourself can become a conflict because you're devoid of being empathic and thinking about how they might feel whenever I say this or how I say this. And I don't think that you lack that at all. I think that you do a great job of expressing that piece.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking too, a lot of times in relationships, people have different argument or communication. I want to say argument. I was like communication styles. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times, like when you're first dating, you're just laying the foundation of how we're going to argue in the future. Mm-hmm. Because then all of a sudden you've introduced how you handle a disagreement, which is it could be avoidance or frustration. And then you have me who handles disagreement where I'm just a little bit more like, it's okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
And you're learning those communication styles right then in the beginning and it kind of set the foundation. What's important to recognize is that your communication styles can grow. You can get new ones.
Yes.
You can get better. And it's practice. And as silly as that sounds, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Because you can now say, hey, I know that Byron may take it personally.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure that I express it in a way that he understands this is not a personal attack on his character. It does not change the fact that I love you.
Yeah.
It does not change the fact that you're my husband and you're my everything. Like, we just disagree or we have a situation here that we need to talk about. And we've talked about this before. And fighting is not a bad thing.
No.
I'm not saying fighting like all out yelling. Sure. Having a disagreement is not a bad thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's just not. We're a place where
it's
thought
a signal.
Increases.
Right.
Yes.
It's a signal that, okay, someone disagrees with this, right? You don't like how I did this or you are uncomfortable with this. Example, okay? So we're driving home from dinner last night. Well, I say we because I'm like driving and Brittney's navigating the whole time. She don't leave me alone when I drive. So we're driving home last night and she's like, she putting on the ghost brake. She holding on to the oh shit handle, right? She's screaming about where I need to go in the directions. And I could only take so much. Like I'm ignoring it. I'm like, yeah, I got it. Okay, yep, cool. Yep, I moved. I'm good. We're good. And then like I'm in the middle of a story that I'm trying to tell Brittney. And then she goes like, you gotta turn, you gotta turn. I'm like, babe, we're okay. Like, and it's raining and there's cars all over the place. So I'm already in my mind, like on high alert while I'm trying to tell this story. And then she gets to yell. And I'm just like, I got so frustrated. I'm like, I got this. Brittney, I just need you to trust me. And that's now thinking about it. Like, I went not only just from that one little moment to like, you don't even trust me. That's where I went.
Dang.
And then guess what the rest of the ride was?
Because that's
Silence
me
like
not
a mug.
saying anything or expressing myself anymore.
Yeah, but what I think what should have happened is just on the jump, like the very first shit handle or the very first ghost break. Hey, babe, it's fine. I got this. Trust me. And then leave it alone, right? Instead of ignoring all of those different signals that you were giving me, showing me that you were concerned for whatever reason about the drive home. But that's just a way, I mean, just a good example of how, like, you know, a conflict isn't a bad thing because you're communicating with me how you feel about something. But I don't think it was a great example of effectively communicating with each other last night. That's for sure.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, we could go down this rabbit hole. But once again, me just not going to go into it, okay? But, you know, I think that is a great example, you know? And I think empathy is a necessary...
She's struggling with some dirty laundry. You just need to go ahead and say what you got to
No,
say.
I just think that being empathetic and just saying, okay. Because there have been, let me tell y'all this, there have been times where we're driving and he's like, I wish, and I watched something happen on the GPS and he's telling a story and it's raining and all these factors are happening. Mind you, he hasn't been in Tampa in 7 weeks. So I'm like, oh, he's about to miss this turn. And it wouldn't be the first time. And there's been times where I didn't say anything and then I watched the whole thing happen. And he's like, why did you say anything if you saw it? So I'm thinking like, okay, let me go ahead and mention it so he doesn't miss this exit. But apparently that was, you know, offended you and you thought I didn't trust you. And I was just trying to help out so you was telling a story. I didn't want you to be like, oh man, now we're headed to Orlando instead of our home. So, you know, but it is what it is, right? It's not like me personally, my feelings aren't hurt. It's just like, dang, I'm trying to look out for you. But you took it as a, dang, you're attacking me as a person and I don't know how to drive and now I don't trust you. Like you took it to a whole nother level. In my mind, it wasn't that serious. Right.
Yeah. And so again, like, but for both of us, it should have been something that could have been nipped earlier. Right, during first signal. So this is a great example, right, of how conflict is accomplished, right?
That's right.
But so different ways to improve your communication strategy. So before we get there, though, I liked how you talked about when you first started dating and how it just reminded me of how like what the dating scene look like when you're starting to talk to somebody. That's what we used to call it back in the day. Like, yeah, I'm talking to so-and-so. I want them to like me. So if we go to the movies or if we go out to eat or if we go to a park to go walk or if we go on a picnic, whatever that first date looks like, I want them to like me. So I'm going to be on my best behavior. I'm going to show you how I would think you want me to communicate with you. But I don't know. I understand first impressions are important, but what's more important is like long-lasting impressions, not just your first impression. So what kind of advice would you give to someone who's starting a date or just got married on their communication style? Like, do you think that you want them to be overly empathetic and just do what their partner wants, or do you want them to be real and raw and true to themselves?
I think before they even get to the marriage, they hopefully have been real and raw and true to themselves, because after that, you know, you don't want to surprises like, dang, you a psycho, okay? Right. You know, I want to know what I'm getting into before we walk down that aisle. So, I think being real, and I think when you're, you know, a little bit older, we were pretty young, so it's kind of different for me to use that as an example. But as you get into your 20s and you're dating someone, I do believe that you need to be, you know, I don't really like sushi, instead of just sucking it up, or I don't like spicy food, you just over here with your mouth on fire at the restaurant, you know, like you need to be honest. You need to know, especially big things. Are you a Christian? Well, yeah, I'm a Christian. You need to know that up front. Like, this is where I'm at. I plan to go to church on Sunday. So if that's not where you are, then we already know that's probably not going to work. Like, I think you trying to sugarcoat it and being like, yeah, I'm a Christian, but you don't go to church like every Sunday, you know, and you're trying to kind of feel that. I don't think that's a good way to go. I just don't. I think you will find a person out there that will be compatible for you.
Oh, for sure.
And they will match your energy and your vibe and the things that you're looking for.
That's a fact. And here's the problem. I think that people are willing they're so impatient that they're willing to sacrifice their deal breakers.
Yes.
They know that for sure, I want to go to church every Sunday, or I don't want to drink alcohol, or I want to go to the club every Friday and Saturday night, but they don't express that to their partner, right? And then
later it's a problem.
Yeah, and then they want to expect that later on down the road, and it's too late at that point. So I totally agree with you that maybe you don't have that twin flame out there, but you have someone that's out there that's for you, who is made for you, that is willing to tolerate the unique you. Not only just tolerate it, but just accept and love the unique you.
Yeah, the good, bad, and the ugly. Yeah.
So you got to be yourself up front. Ways to to work on or structure your communication style when you're expressing yourself. One is to start with empathy, in my opinion. What do you think?
I say just start.
Yeah.
Just start. If you don't know how to do it, especially if you're raised like Byron, where like you're not allowed to express yourself at all, and you shut up and color, don't cry about it, just start.
Yeah.
Just start with saying, this is how I feel.
Right.
And go from there.
And see where it goes. I like that. I also like the empathy piece because like you started with your friend that you had talked about. Hey, I have to express something to you and it's not meant to hurt your feelings. So like lead with your intent, letting them know that this is going to be an uncomfortable and a complex conversation. So you're kind of gearing them up for what's about to come next. So I like that. This is not me changing how I feel to make you feel a certain way. This is just me setting you up for what I'm about to provide you. And I'm willing to hear whatever that outcome is from you once I'm done expressing myself to you.
And then I think on the opposite side, also be willing to seek understanding once you've expressed yourself, to be ready to understand and process that information. Yeah,
because you even said, right, how my truth might not be their truth, and there's two sides to both stories, right? Or two sides to a story. I may have gone into a conversation knowing what both sides of the story is, but I really don't. Whenever you go into those complex conversations, even with your partner, be prepared to hear what their truth is. Like just now when you told me what your truth was, I wasn't thinking about that whatsoever. Like you were just trying to look out for us, making sure that we got home safe and on time. We're not heading to Orlando. We're actually heading home. That's what was on your mind when I'm like, you should have just been listening to my story, right?
Yes, but
so,
don't make assumptions.
Don't
make assumptions.
But obviously, like we don't want y'all to keep going down those same, rabbit hole, right? And what is the definition of an insanity? Is just doing the same thing over and over and over again. So obviously if things don't work out for you, go find some professional help or find a third party that y'all both trust. Come on, holla at Brittney and Byron, you know what I'm saying?
Come on, Dirty Laundry, we'll work it out.
We'll work through it. But no, seriously, if you feel like you don't have friends or family that can help you through those things, find some professional help that can help you walk through those hard times for sure.
Definitely. And it will give you skills. They'll teach you skills of communication to help you be better.
So what I learned from today is like be intentional. I really like how we led with that, is being intentional. Think about how you're going to approach a difficult conversation and be honest, be true to how you truly feel about something, and then start. Like just start. Don't try to influence how someone else is going to feel or how they're going to respond to how you're expressing yourself. Just do it and then see what comes of it. Yeah.
I love it. That's right. Express yourself.
Yeah, it's important. It's important, y'all. So again, hey, we just want to say thank y'all so much for being a part of what we got going on. Hey, listen, I don't know what's going on with IG, but please follow us, like us, and share. Push the word out on behalf of Byron and Brittney Dirty Laundry Podcast. We have been having so much fun with this, and we appreciate each and every one of y'all tuning in every other Tuesday. We're going to keep doing this thing through the summer and just keep on seeing how far we can go.
That's right.
Yeah. So without further ado, be blessed, be you, just be.
Got it straight up out the mud, dirt on my feet. I'm blessed to be